Okay, let's talk sleep cycles. This is just an image I pulled off the internet. There's lots of similar ones out there, but this kind of walks us through, if you notice down here at the bottom, an 8-hour sleep time periodization. And then over here on the left, you'll notice that it shows kind of the stages of sleep. You've all heard of the levels or how deep of sleep you're getting, and that's represented over here. So the higher the stage number, the deeper the sleep. And just looking at this generally, you'll notice kind of a couple interesting things about sleep. One, when you first go to sleep, you pretty rapidly drop down into a very deep sleep right down here. So you go all the way down into that stage 4, and you'll notice you're there for a significant amount of time. Then, of course, you cycle out of that, and you come up here to a pretty light sleep, Rem sleep as it's called, and then you cycle back down again. Now, you'll notice that the next cycle you go into that very deep sleep again, but you're not there quite as long, and then you cycle back out, and then as you go through more sleep cycles, you actually don't get quite as deep anymore. And so the trend here is that initially you go into deeper sleep and you stay there longer, and then as you get further and further into your night's sleep, you go less deep for less period of time. Now the opposite kind of happens up here at the top. So initially this REM sleep will be fairly short. This kind of has them all about the same time period, but generally speaking, this initial REM sleep will be fairly short, and it will lengthen as you get more cycles. So shorter here, longer over here, and the opposite with the deep sleep. Now this is important for a couple reasons, and there's a couple things to understand that are vital about these cycles. So the deep or slow wave sleep, that's when you do a lot of your metabolic work. So your healing and repair, that's when you fix your hormones, that's when you have anabolic activity for growth and repair and whatnot. The REM sleep is where you do like your neurocognitive work. So that's where you improve your memory, your cognitive function. That's where you consolidate all the memories and things that you learned about during the day. That's when you replenish your neurotransmitters. And one interesting thing is, you're actually the junctions between your neurons gets bigger, and your cerebrospinal fluid will help wash out all the garbage. So that's kind of like your brain will do detoxing. And in situations like with Alzheimer's, where you have those amyloid beta plaques that build up during your sleep is actually when you'll like rinse all of that out. So a couple things to understand as well. What we know for sure is that you need to get 8 hours of time in bed minimum, and that's really across the board. Some people say, well, I don't need to sleep so much. The reality is that pretty much everybody needs 8 hours of sleep, or 8 hours of time in bed. Now, notice I said in bed. Really that will equate to about 7.5 hours of sleep time for most people on average. Normal time in bed for most people is anywhere from 7 to 9 hours. That's 7.5 hours of sleep is kind of your standard, and 30 minutes above and below that really covers about 90+% of the population. So that 8 hours of time in bed, even if you're not quite asleep yet, that's really what you're shooting for. And if you regularly require 9, 10+ hours of sleep, that potentially could indicate a problem. But yeah, these are your sleep cycles. What happens in your deep sleep, what happens in your REM sleep, and how your body sleeps itself through the night.